We have reached the end, the last days of Animals Man issue 6. There are two things worth mentioning in this before we get to the real meat of this video, which is me telling an unrelated story about myself. We have a cover by Brian Bollocks, and you will straight away clock on the gravestone we list Animals Man's death as 2014. This series is set in 2024. So what's going on there? I reckon the series was done as set in 2014, and then someone decided 5 years into the future wasn't enough, so they upped it to 15. The 2014 year makes more sense with regards to his kids and their ages. The daughter is usually somewhere between 6 and 10 years old, so it makes sense that 5 years into the future, she is still in high school. She would have had to be held back a lot to still be in high school 15 years into the future. The other thing, this series isn't good. It is a bad story written badly by a bad writer. And the last 3 issues of it are very repetitive and pointless. These villains beat heroes up over and over again. The last issue, this one, at least provides an ending. We have those yellow aliens from his origin, and our ending is one of acceptance. Animals Man has been losing his powers, and he has been pathetic and insecure about it. But we do have an ending where he lets go, and so he gets a happy ending with his family. He retires and his family life is repaired and healthy. We're just meant to pretend he didn't have an affair with Star Fox in issue 3. I don't recommend the series. It is 6 issues too long. Nothing to see here. In keeping with the idea of Animals Man letting go, my nemesis has retired from stand-up comedy, and so I have honoured that by promising to no longer ridicule or mock him. If he returns to comedy, or worse, returns to YouTube, he nullifies that promise. I shall tell a story now, and it does involve him, but he just happens to be in it. Something I would get asked a decent amount of times. I think anyone doing comedy does. What is the worst gig you have ever done? Now, there are 2 types of worst gig. There's the gigs where the problem is the gig, and then there's the gigs where the problem is you. I have done many gigs where I bombed and died on my arse. This worst gig I've ever done is not one of those types. I have never offered the name of my nemesis. I try to keep it hidden. I don't want people to find him or track him down. However, I will happily offer up the name of the person who ran this gig, because I am no longer trying to be a stand-up, so burning bridges matters little to me. Peter Vincent from 10 Feet Tall Comedy. Many people had axes to grind with him. Most of them were entitled open spots who think they deserve work. Like in general, if you run a gig, you won't believe the amount of unhinged people who think they are God's gift after 2 gigs. Peter Vincent ran typically professional gigs, Stockton Arc, paid gigs. The acts would be paid. There's a standard when money is involved. You're not given a paid middle spot to fucking Duncan from Heworth because he made 5 people laugh at an awkward open mic in Gateshead. Peter Vincent had this amazing approach to dealing with acts like that. He blanked them. He totally ignored them. He would never give them any hint of acknowledgement. All these mental, deluded people hated him for that. I didn't. I just want to make that clear. I am not one of the bitter open spots that he either never replied to or turned down. I honestly half respect the sheer lack of compassion or care for his own image. Like he would refuse to ever talk to anyone he considered beneath him or his gigs. The only people who liked him were people who were already getting work off him, or people who had spotted his attitude and thought around it. Anyway, it's a long setup. My stories do often have them. I wanted to explain that I am not actually holding any baggage or animosity against Peter Vincent before this gig. He posted on one of the Facebook groups, one of the comedy forums on Facebook, wanting acts to do an unpaid gig on a Sunday afternoon in Stockton. He said it would also be a chance for him to see them and consider them for paid work. The comments underneath had loads of proper comedians saying that they would do it, like pro comedians, paid comedians. Because a gig on a Sunday afternoon is appealing. It is an extra gig to squeeze in on a week. It's not clashing with any other gig. It's something to do on a Sunday afternoon before a gig somewhere else, maybe. I got on at this gig, and so did my nemesis, and 3 other people. Do you remember all those professional comedians I just mentioned who said they would do it? I reckon Peter Vincent privately messaged them and told them not to bother. You see, the gig was in Stockton, and it was in an alleyway in Stockton without a microphone. This aspect of the gig, a quite important one if you ask me, hadn't been mentioned in Peter Vincent's post. The post presented a legitimate gig, and legitimate comedians were replying saying that they were interested in it and that they would do it. And then weirdly, the only 5 who did were me, my nemesis, and 3 other people who I won't name and shame. Peter Vincent also promised he would be there to see them or he would consider them for paid work. Was he fuck? He was nowhere to be seen. It was... I need to explain and I don't think I can. It was a fucking con. Some tiny pub was doing a beer festival thing. There was this tiny pub about the size of a cupboard, located at like the side of the alley. The alley was in between a travel agent's and a closed down shoe zone. They were doing a beer festival or some shit like that, and there was some woman on singing before us. Come on, you all know this one. She had a microphone. The comedy didn't. But this pub was putting on a weekend festival or whatever, and they obviously approached Peter Vincent to put some comedy on. Instead of him saying, no, it wouldn't really work in an alleyway in Stockton at 4 p.m. on a Sunday after a pub singer. I allege he took whatever money they offered him, if any, and he agreed to do it by instead gaslighting 5 people he considered beneath him to do a free unpaid gig that he has clearly turned away the real comedians from. That's the type of person that I think gives a clear indication of why I hated comedy so much. The thing is, there were people there. Pissheads, drunk, stood in an alleyway on a Sunday afternoon. On reflection, I don't know why we went ahead with the gig. There wasn't even anyone there to run it. We ran the gig ourselves, basically. The lineup was Act 1, Act 2, me, and then my nemesis, and the other one was MCing it. He struggled, the MC. There's no fucking microphone. The drunks were just talking amongst themselves. You needed to exert authority or command their attention if it was going to work. The MC didn't do that. Act 1 didn't. Act 2 didn't. It's this part in the story where I have to confess with shame that me and my nemesis, both, within the context I do not consider this a real gig, me and him both actually did okay. He is loud and angry. I am weird and out there. The others were just ganning on and doing their act. They were treating it like it was an actual gig. I knew it was a waste of time, and trying new stuff or long stuff was pointless because they weren't listening. Go for the bangers. Go for the short attention span stuff. Go for stuffing a Captain America action figure into a condom. Do that bit. Well, how hard is she in fish years? Do that. Do all the classic bits. And my nemesis was perfectly formed for a gig like that. He is confrontational, and his terrible material is very much do one and then do the next one. No segue or structure. I take no real pride in this. We actually went down well in an alleyway. I mean, after the first 3 acts, I was so resigned to failure. I don't know how it worked, but it was okay for me. Peter Vincent never contacted any of us afterwards. He didn't explain things or apologise. We were cheap meat he put through a grinder and then didn't want any further dealing with. He sent us out to die, and that me and my nemesis didn't was irrelevant. Of course, on the back of that, I never wanted to deal with Peter Vincent again. My nemesis, on the other hand, is shameless, and he badgered him for 3 or 4 years after about how he had, quote, smashed it at his other gig, and that he should now be getting paid work on the back of that. My only other interaction with Peter Vincent was a few years later. He posted another spot on the same Facebook group, and it seemed too good to be true, so I just commented underneath, "Is this one in an alleyway without a microphone too?" He replied he commented underneath my comment, and he did not in any way acknowledge what I meant or my grievance. He did not even say no. He just listed more details for other people to see. So my beef with Peter Vincent was never about him not giving me any gigs or ignoring me. My beef was that he didn't ignore me one time, and that he took advantage of 5 wannabe comedians. He also ran a gong show where his opening act was 2 hours late, and he made all the competitors wait in a tight hallway because he didn't want us serfs in the same green room as that act who was 2 hours late. I will end this with allowing my nemesis to play me out. I went on his Twitter and found the most recent joke he had posted. I will allow him to do this uninterrupted, without commentary or explanation from me. These are his famous last words for now. What do you call a legendary female tennis player covered in ties? Martina, cravat all over.